So I'm going to start, because it's January 6th, to ask, whether or not you feel a little bit more optimistic or not a year after those horrible events in terms of the United States and the future of our democracy.
Well, actually, no, I don't really feel that much better because, we're still grappling with the ongoing consequences of that particular event. And in many respects as well, it was just an episode in an ongoing struggle that we're in the midst of right now on the societal, political level about the future of the country. And it was a manifestation, January 6th of 2021, of the deep divisions, the partisan infighting, the polarization within our society. The fact that we could have a group of our citizens basically storm a building that is supposed to be a unifying symbol, a symbol of freedom, of representational democracy, not of repression. This isn't like the storming of the Bastille and the idea of a kind of repressive fortress that had to be taken down for people to win their rights. This was, the here and now of American politics, and a group of people feeling that they had no recourse other than to engage in acts of violence, beating up Capitol Police, going after members of Congress who are supposed to be their representatives, and potentially even getting their hands on the vice president and talking about hanging him. I mean, who would have thought that the United States would end up in that kind of situation? The fact that we haven't really fully processed it, that we haven't kind of come up with a common narrative of what happened there. We've had the dismissal of this as just an episode one day in January, even by Mike Pence, who would have been the target of the mob himself. I mean, this kind of shows the problems that the United States is facing. So no, I'm not feeling particularly optimistic about where we are, but I do think as we move on, with this, we unpack it. The real necessity is to figure out where we're going as a polity. Can we overcome these massive divisions? Can we find a common purpose? Can we put America, back into the picture here, and all of us as American citizens who are not divided up into these camps? And certainly don't feel that we have to get to the streets and commit acts of violence to be able to, find our own place in the world and in the country. I mean, we've got a long way to go still.
When January 6th happened, I found myself thinking back to a lot of the movements outside the United States that Americans have historically supported. The people themselves that were storming the Capitol, actually would have thought of themselves in that environment as not so different in trying to uphold their own democracy and keep the elections sacrosanct. Do you think there's any reasonable fairness in that perspective?
Well, look, clearly those people did. Many of those people did think that, as you laid out like that. And they'd been lied to. And I would hope that as a result of the process, and all the discussions and the national debate about this afterwards, that many of them have realised, it's not just those who found themselves prosecuted and facing jail terms, but others who were involved in it would realise that they've been lied to. And look, this is the United States. I'd sue people if I were them, basically for, false, motivating them under false pretenses. So not just a kind of a question of, civil suits against them by people who were hurt at their hands, like the Capitol Police. But if I were them, I would be suing, the leaders that lied to them, because they were, basically incited to violence and encouraged to storm the Capitol building under entirely false pretenses. And look, I'm not a litigious person, and in another setting I wouldn't advise that, but this is the United States. And, the president and many other people have decided with frivolous lawsuits, and this wouldn't be frivolous.